gamers, today we're going to do a new tier list, and it's going to be quite a bit different from the previous one that I made before the tournament. Whenever we have a tournament in Age of Empires 4, basically everyone thinks certain civs are good. People don't really practice like too much. They just play ladder, they try out stuff, and then during the tournament people start practicing a lot. You start seeing like, oh, this civ is maybe not as good, this civ is better than I thought, and so on and so forth. So this happens every single tournament. Before we get started, I'll show you guys the tournament win rates. Yeah, so obviously some civs have like good win rate, like French, almost 60% win rate, but it only has 5 bans. Now, someone made a tier list based off of the win rates in the tournament, and I think like ban rates, win rates, and losses, and this is what it looks like. I mean, some of it I agree with, some of it I don't, but here we go. This tier list is obviously for entertainment purposes because it does not affect you in Gold League or Platinum League or Diamond League or even Conqueror 3 League. This is just, in my opinion, which civs are the best at the very top level. And I'm going to base this off of land maps specifically. So the number 1 and number 2 civilization in no specific order, I think, is still HRE and Rus. I think this has been the case pre-tournament actually, and this is the case post-tournament and during tournament. So these civs are at the top level of the best civs by far. The reason for that is professional scouting is still good, and professional scouting with these civs is very, very good. Obviously it's been nerfed for most civs, but with these two pro scouts is really, really strong. Rus is, I think, the only civ, I guess China and Jushi to an extent, but Rus can do pro scouting very easily into fast castle, into range cavalry units, which gives them a lot of map control and a lot of income. So it makes Rus like very, very good. And then HRE can also go for pro scouting, but the fact that I have Chapel at 40% gathering, you can do pretty much anything with HRE. You don't even need to go pro scouting. They're very strong because you can open barracks and you can push in the deer. Like, you can do a bunch of stuff with HRE, and I think it's the most banned civ, or together with Rus is the most banned civ. So Rus got 111 bans, HRE got 133, and HRE only got 5 games played throughout the whole tournament. So, and I'm pretty sure 3 or 4 of those are because the same player didn't ban them, which was Mia. So yeah. The next civilization that we'll be talking about is going to be Abbasid. So Abbasid is, and this was my opinion before the tournament, I thought maybe someone can pull something out, maybe we can cook something up. It just seems pretty bad in my opinion. Abbasid has some good matchups, and we have actually seen Abbasid peaked towards the end of the tournament. But when I was watching those games, I feel like the only reason Abbasid could have won / did win games is because people don't know how to play against Abbasid against the current meta, because nobody's playing Abbasid in practice. So I feel like it's more of a surprise pick rather than, oh, it's a good pick, I'm going to pick it, right? We've seen some Abbasid on Frisian marches. Pretty sure it had a negative win rate, so take that as is. The next civ that's going to be joining Abbasid in the D tier is going to be English. I talked about this in the previous civ tier list, and nothing really changed. I think the problem with both of these civs is they have to go to TC, and when they do go to TC, they're too slow. If they stay on one TC, they're not as good as the other civs. So yeah, I think they both could use some help somewhere. Another reason why I think these two civs are struggling even more. So if you're unaware, or maybe you haven't been watching tournaments, basically not only we have pro scouting now, but we also have deer pushing builds, which is civilizations like Japanese or JD or even French sometimes, or Lancaster or Ottoman, don't actually go for pro scouts. They just open barracks in the arcade and they push in the first deer pack to them. And these civs, I mean, technically you could do with Abbasid, but then you're delaying your second TC. With English, you're pushing with men-at-arms, which are more expensive than normal spearmen, so you're also delaying your second TC quite a bit, so it's just not as great. Okay, the next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be Byzantine. Byzantine has been one of the highest rated win rate civs in the tournament. It has 44 bans, so it's pretty high up there. It has 61.5% win rate, sorry. It is a very good civ, and one of the latest changes we have had for Byzantine was the change that made their cisterns cost 120 stone now. It used to be 125, now it's 120. And before, a cistern would cost 50, and then next one is 100 stone, and then the next one is 150 stone, then 200 and 250. Now all cisterns cost 120 stone. So what does this mean? Your start is a bit worse, like your Dark Age is a bit worse, but the longer the game goes, which is actually not even like 20 minutes into the game, but already 10 minutes into the game, maybe even earlier, like 7, 8 minutes, Byzantine is better with this change than it used to be. So now the very popular build with Byzantine, which I'll make a guide eventually, is to basically open with 2 villagers on stone, 1 villager on gold, and the rest on food. So the idea is you leave 2 villagers on stone until you have 5 cisterns, which actually is very, very quick. And I think when you have 5 cisterns, you have 24% increased gathering rate on basically all your economy, because you spread out cisterns to the important resources like berries or golds. So you have 24% increased gather rate on basically everything. It's like an HRE chapel, but on all your economy for like, is 26%? Yeah. So on all your economy for like 20 minutes, you just have 26% increased gather rate. And even later on, when you're out of those cisterns and you don't have that buff anymore, 120 stone, 20, 25 minutes into the game is not a lot. So you can just extend it further. And basically your economy should always be 26% gather rate increase, which is kind of crazy. So once you get that set up, it is very, very good. Good stuff for you. The next civ we'll be talking about is going to be another A tier. It's going to be Malian. Malian has seen a lot of popularity. I'm not sure what their win rate in the tournament was. 59%, 26 bans. I think Malian is a pretty good civ. We'll see if I'm going to keep it in A tier or remove it. But basically the current Malian playstyle, there's 2. There's the classic Malian cow boom. But there's also the style where you go pro scouts into a lot of units, and then you go Mansa Javelineers, and you just kind of quote unquote all in castle off of that by eating cows and eating deer. You actually never make cows unless the game stabilizes. You just kind of commit to it and go for it. So we'll put them in A tier for now. I think they're pretty strong. The next civ we'll be talking about is going to be, let's do OTD. I think OTD D tier. It's same as always. It's the same reasoning, same everything. OTD 2TC has seen some play in the tournament, but to be fair, whenever it plays against any of the top civs, it does not look very convincing. Next one we'll be talking about is going to be China. China is a very, 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 very good. And honestly, if we had 3 bans before picking, I think these 3 civs would probably be just perma-banned always by everyone. China is like right under Rus and HRE, very, very close. The difference between Rus and HRE and China is that I feel like China can run out of food somewhat quickly because they do produce villagers faster in Song. And I know they also get more food, but it feels like they eat through their food a lot quicker. And if you're going for like mass knights or whatever, you can kind of produce a crap ton of units, but eventually you just kind of dry up immediately. Whereas Rus's HRE, I feel like they have a better curve in food gathering and stuff like that. So I think China is incredibly good civ. Pro scouts with China is still the meta. So I don't think I've seen a single 2TC China in the whole tournament. So pro scout is still the way to go. To be fair, I think the only reason why China is this good is because their pro scouting upgrades so fast. So if China didn't upgrade faster, I think they would be like A tier, maybe even B tier to be fair. But the fact that they get not B tier, probably A tier. The fact that they get their pro scouting done so fast and there's kind of not much you can do about it is what makes them super, super strong. Next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be Jushi Legacy. And we're just going to join it right next to China. Literally the same reasons as given for why China is good. Jushi Legacy is the same. They can just like mass incredible amount of units super quick and go pro scouting. It is very, very hard to stop. So I'm going to give them both a little S tier. The next civilization, we're going to put Ayyubid right here. Now, Ayyubid did not do well in the tournament is, I think, a little bit of an understatement. It is 28.6% win rate with almost no bans, 6 and 15 win rate. It is the lowest win rate civ, but there's a bit more into that, right? So Ayyubid was picked more than English, it was picked more than OTD, it was picked more than Abbasid, and English and OTD I think were played on the Holy Island map, whereas Ayyubid was purely played on the land maps. Now, why is Ayyubid here? Well, the top playstyles right now are big, like opening playstyles at least, are either deer pushing or pro scouting. Neither of those is very good with Ayyubid. And another problem is the meta is very knight heavy, which is kind of weird. Let me explain that. So because the meta is knight heavy, you would think that Ayyubid is very good because, well, people are making knights. So Ayyubid, camels, they counter knights, so shouldn't Ayyubid be good? Well, the problem is the meta is mass knights. But if you're playing against Ayyubid and you're playing China or Jushi or Atri or Rus, you're not going to make mass knights. You're going to make a couple of knights to harass, and then you will switch to full infantry. And then you're fighting with camel lancers versus infantry. And camel lancers are amazing against knights. They're amazing against cavalry. They're amazing to raid, but they're actually really bad in fights because they have lower charge damage. They're very expensive, and just in straight up fights, knights are a lot better. So unlike the other civs where you can harass, you can do a lot of damage, and then you gather up knights and you do a main push, when Ayyubid does that, it doesn't feel as strong. So Ayyubid is still a castle rush civ, which the only way you can do well with castle rushing is if you have a lot of food and a lot of resource secured, and Ayyubid kind of struggles a little bit with that. Not as bad as these, but not great either. The next civilization we'll be discussing is going to be, let's do French. French, I think, is A tier. I think a lot of people underestimated French in this tournament. Again, I feel like last tournament I played French and JD like crazy amounts, and I feel like this tournament it was also underestimated quite a bit. I think in the end it went 59.5% win rate with almost no bans. So what that means is French was played not only quite a bit, it wasn't banned almost at all. I think a couple of these bans are by me and Chinese players, Louis CSO. And what's interesting is French wasn't like 60% win rate and it was used on like some weird maps. It was used on Bald Land or Dry Arabia, like open pro scouting maps where you were playing against either Malian or China or Jushi Legacy or Byzantine civs like those, and it still had 60% win rate. So I think French is really good. Pro scouting with French is still a thing. The problem with French is, I feel like the games can fall apart really quickly. Like if you lose a couple of knights, if you lose like a first knight, I feel like it's a complete disaster. But also you're very tempo heavy. You gotta hit some timings, and if you miss a timing, the opponent ages up, and then you're just kind of dead. So there's a lot of that. But if you manage to secure food and have really good micro, I think with French you can make a lot of things happen. So yeah, I'm gonna put it in that A tier for now. Jeanne d'Arc, I'm just gonna put JD here too. Same reasons as French. Obviously the civs are played a tiny bit different, but these are the closest two variants that we have in terms of gameplay. Same reasons, like it puts pressure on the opponent. Scaling into late game is very good on JD and French, but you're not as kind of explosive as the S tier civs, so it takes a little bit of a build up, and I think it's the same with Malian and Byzantines as well. Next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be House of Lancaster. Now I'm actually not sure where I put House of Lancaster last time. I think it was S tier. Now House of Lancaster has received multiple nerfs. This is a civ that I would actually say might be higher. I am not 100% sure. But we're going to put House of Lancaster in A tier for now. It used to be S tier, but again, it received like 8 nerfs or something. And I feel that right now in the game, they're very good because they can open Dark Age and do some harassment. They can push back the deer, and then preventing the whole manor boom is very difficult. And I think players have learned how to not take any damage with House of Lancaster. It feels like it's very hard to punish them. So it's like, because you can't punish them, you gotta do your own thing. You gotta be either more greedy or you gotta go 2TC, because pushing them under the Lancaster castle just doesn't really work. And I have said this before, and I'll say it again. I also wrote this to devs a long time ago, but this civilization to me makes no sense in terms of RTS. So RTS in general. So quick yapping about this. In RTS, you have army, you have economy, and you have tech. Okay, you cannot have all three, right? If you go economy like Abbasid, you have no tech and no army, right? If you go for tech, fast castle, you have no army, you don't have a good economy. If you go for a lot of army, you usually don't have a lot of tech, right? You're not castle and a lot of army. You're just feudal with a lot of army, not with great economy. House of Lancaster, the reason it makes no sense is because it completely breaks that. They have no army, and they have insane economy, and then they're able at the same time from insane economy to not slowly build up an army, but just crap out 11 demi-lancers in feudal, and they can actually age up to castle extremely quickly right after that without you actually being able to punish it. So not only they are in base, they're safe, they're booming, but at the same time, somehow the opponent is the one being defensive, right? Which is, I think, it just makes no sense for RTS design, and it breaks everything that RTS is. So a player that's booming should be the defensive one. If you're booming, you cannot put pressure on your opponent too. Like that makes no sense, right? Very often when you're playing against House of Lancaster, you can't put pressure on them, and then they boom up, and then they put pressure on you in a moment because they produce demi-lancers, 11 of them in 30 seconds. So this is something I do not like at all, and I think majority of the top players would agree with me that this just doesn't make any sense to me. You know, if Abbasid goes to TC, they don't just produce 30 horsemen in 20 seconds, right? They got to build stables, they got to build archer ranges, they got to make units, they got to upgrade the units. Demi-lancers just come out and then put pressure on the opponent. So while I don't think it's like as strong, I just think the design it doesn't make any sense. Why is it not S tier in that case? Because these civs are just better. It's not that this civ is not good, it's just these are much better. Yeah, this is not, what I'm talking about is not a balance issue, and I feel like people always confuse these two. This is a design issue, not a balance issue. Design issue is something that creates for bad gameplay or just doesn't make sense, or units being dumb, right? It has nothing to do with balance. The next civ we'll be talking about is going to be Delhi. And this breaks my heart. Delhi did pretty poorly. And I actually think, so it has 47 bans. I think this was one of the biggest mistakes in terms of drafting of majority of the players in the tournament. The fact that they were banning Delhi. I think Delhi is not good right now. Straight up, not good. So with that being said, I'm going to put Delhi in B tier, and I'll tell you why. So the game is, I actually thought that Delhi is going to become better. Because of the Pro Scout nerf, I thought this is going to be better for Delhi, and I thought it's going to be good, and yada yada. Delhi is played on open maps, right? It's played on Dry Arabia, it's played on Gorge. Any map that has 3 sacred sites, Delhi is played there. Now, when you do a draft and you have 5 maps and 2 of them are like that, right? Like you have a Dry Arabia and have a Gorge, and then the other maps are a little bit more weird, a little bit more specific. The opponent then knows, oh, he's going to play Delhi on Dry Arabia, or he's going to play Delhi on Gorge, okay? And let's say the opponent has French and China. The opponent will say, okay, he has Delhi, so he's going to pick Delhi on that and that map. So I'm going to pick French on Dry Arabia, and I'm going to pick China on Gorge, which are both terrible matchups for Delhi. Like terrible, terrible matchups for Delhi. So I feel like, I know this might sound weird, I don't think Delhi is a bad civ. If you look at it like objectively, like just as a civilization. I think the problem is in tournaments, because there's a lot of weird maps, like in Light and Horizon, you can't play Delhi on Light and Horizon. So opponent knows where you're going to play it, and they just counter pick it, which I think the biggest mistake of this tournament for a lot of players is banning or drafting Delhi super quickly, because it is very obvious where you're going to play it. Even though I didn't spend a lot of time into like looking into the meta and stuff like that before the tournament, I realized this, I think week 1, that because of the maps, whenever you do a draft, it's pretty known where the Delhi is going to be played, and I thought it was a pretty weak pick. And I think I only played Delhi twice or 3 times the whole tournament, and I think that was pretty early on as well. Even some of the matchups that used to be very good for Delhi, I feel like these days are not so much. Like Delhi versus Malian used to be very good with Delhi. Now it's like pretty even, or even Malian slightly favored. Delhi versus Byzantine used to be like, you could outmass them by crazy amount, but now because Byzantine is better because of cisterns, that kind of becomes a little bit of a rough one. And then these civs that are not good against Delhi, well, they're not being played at all. So kind of a problem. So B tier. Japanese, I'm gonna put in A tier actually. And you're not misreading this. You're not looking at it wrong. I'm not talking about hybrid maps. I'm not talking about water maps. Japanese is A tier, I think. And I don't remember if Japanese, I ever put it in A tier. I mean, I never put it in S tier, but I don't think I ever put it in A tier even. Japanese has benefited from the pro scouting nerf, right? Because Japanese does not go for pro scouting in general. But what's interesting is Japanese standard build order now, no matter what you do, is you always open barracks in Dark Age. So you go for professional spearmen, as we like to call them. And basically these days, Japanese is played by you pushing the first deer to your TC. And if you have that done, you actually have crazy amount of food, crazy amount of economy, which allows you to get to castle without dying. So Japanese, because of that, because of pro scouting nerf, because of other nerfs that have happened to other civs, is now looking a lot better. And even with civs like Delhi used to destroy Japanese, and I feel like Japanese is very good against Delhi now. Yeah, it's just a pretty good civ. They also received Yumi cost buff, and I know it like sounds, oh, it's just 5 wood. Basically, their archers are cheaper for 5 wood. It might not seem like a lot, but it's a unit that you can mass extremely quickly. And the fact that they cost, they went from, I don't know what their cost was, 30 wood to 25. It is a massive buff, right? Again, if you look at 5 wood, that's not a lot. But if you look at percentage-wise, what the cost got buffed, and the fact that you can print them out with Yorishiro, it is crazy. Isn't it 5 food? Is it 5 food or wood? Either or. I don't know which one it is. It is a lot better. It's 5 food? Okay, my bad. So yeah, I think they're a lot better. I think also, I guess the main issue of Japanese looking at it post this tournament and during the tournament was just lack of food. And now people have figured out, you know what, you can just open the barracks, which is also buffed. The barracks cost 75 wood. It makes the transition to feudal a lot smoother. And like I said, playing with a whole deer pack, if you manage to do that, it just feels very, very good. So, and it doesn't seem that big of an investment to go barracks and like 2-3 spearmen. So now I'm not very good with Japanese. This is a civ that I actually need to play a lot more. I don't know if I even drafted it once during the tournament, because I just didn't practice Japanese at all. Yeah, I played it once and I lost. So it's a civ that I should definitely play more, but a lot of other players are doing really, really well with it. So thumbs up. I actually even wonder, if you play a hybrid map, would you even play Japanese on a hybrid map these days, or would you just play it on land map? Kind of interesting to think about. The next civilization we will be talking about is going to be Ottoman. I actually think Ottoman has a lot of potential. I think we will see a little bit of a rise of Ottoman. I think the issue why we didn't see Ottoman do even better or get picked even more. So Ottoman ended at 57%, 58% winner, which is not bad at all. It received almost no bans. It did pretty good. Now, it was played on Enlightened Horizon a lot. I don't know where it is. So it was played 19 times on Enlightened Horizon, which is out of how many games? Out of 33 games, it was played 19 times on the same map. But with that being said, Chinese players, Louis and CSO, play Ottoman quite well. B, Anotan, they play Ottoman quite a bit. And then on the other side, I feel like players like me, Marine Lord, Wham, Vortex, Luciferon, Poppy Pot don't play Ottoman as much. So I think Ottoman might have a chance to become even better. I think the pro scouting nerfs definitely helped Ottoman. Ottoman can also open with Spearmen in Dark Age very easily to push in some deer, and their Sipahi are obviously crazy good. I'll make a guide about this, but there's a style with Ottoman where you push in some deer, you age up, you try to go fast castle with some harassment in feudal, and then you go mass Sipahi into Sprangles, which is very fun to play, actually. Very annoying to play against, but very fun to play. So for now, we'll put Ottoman into B tier. Next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be Mongol. Now, Mongol did pretty poorly. I'm gonna be honest, I feel like Mongol is a bit all over the place. And the reason for that is, I feel like people don't have a set style, and people don't have like a set, like, this is what's best. I've seen so many Mongol ideas and Mongol playstyles throughout the tournament that I genuinely don't know what to think about Mongol. So we've seen tower rushes, we've seen making barracks just push your own deer, we've seen fast castle, Mangudai openers into fast castle, we've seen Keshik openers into fast castle, we've seen just a straight up archer Keshik all in feudal. We don't see a lot of trade actually with Mongol, which is kind of interesting. The trade completely died out. I don't remember the last time I've seen a trade game. I mean, okay, I've done trade in literally the last game I've played of the tournament, or second to last game, but people are just not going trade anymore. Yeah, I don't really know where to put Mongol. I'm actually going to have to put him, we'll put him at C+, okay? I don't think it's in a dire situation like Ayyubid, but I can't put it with Delhi and Ottoman. I feel like they started off really well, if I remember correctly, in this tournament, and it just kind of slowly have gone downhill. So we'll give them a C+. And last but not least, a civilization that I gave an S tier in the last one, I'm pretty sure. Well, I am sad to say it is not S tier. It was almost exclusively played on Enlightened Horizon. It did have a very high win rate, but this is why you gotta look at the maps, why you gotta look at what happened there. So it's 61% win rate. It did receive a lot of bans too, but Knights Templar were basically completely broken on 2 maps, and it was played on pretty much only 2 maps. And those 2 maps were Holy Island, which was only played 2 times in the whole tournament. So, Templars were played on Holy Island only 2 times, because whenever it was, Holy Island was played another time, it was getting banned. It is incredibly OP on Holy Island. And then the other map that it was played on constantly was Enlightened Horizon, which is where most of the games come from. People have not really played it on any other maps. You can see some attempts here and there, but I genuinely think that Templars still need time to be figured out, and I think most players played this tournament with what's comfortable. There was some experimentation before the tournament, but I feel during it people were just like, well, I don't need to practice Templars on land maps because I'm either going to play at Holy Island or Enlightened Horizon, and that's it. So for that reason, I'm going to put him C+, but I can see them going up, to be fair. Maybe there's going to be like some builds figured out now because we're going into post-tournament season and people are going to be trying out a lot of stuff. And I think now that the tournament is over, people are probably going to stop playing China, Jushi, HRE, Rus. They're going to stop playing like the top civs. They're going to start experimenting more with like Ayyubid, Abbasid, English, OTD, Mongol, Ottoman, and so on and so forth. So I can see Templars going up, but that's where it's going to be right now. So there it is. I think that's my list right there. Yeah, I don't know if I would change anything. I think that's pretty good. Anyway, if you guys are watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something new. And just remember, this is not why you're losing games in whatever league you're playing. This is just for tippity top, cream of the crop level gameplay. If you're watching on Twitch, let's keep going.